miss another update.
Namaste and welcome to the Wednesday 10 p.m. show. And as usual, we have Shri Vibhuti Jha. Namaste, Vibhuti Ji. And we are expecting Abhijit Iyer Mitra to join any moment. And of course, we will start and just wait for him to join. Today, the topic must be a little confusing for many people. It says India, world, and the bureaucracy. So, India and the world is fine. Where does the bureaucracy come into this? And that is because we have always been discussing, especially in context of the United States, that that it is the establishment that does everything. And what is that establishment if not the bureaucracy? It doesn't have to be the civilian bureaucracy alone. The military has its own bureaucracy. The security apparatus has its own bureaucracy. The State Department has its own bureaucracy. And as far as India is concerned, we got the Foreign Service, we got the Administrative Service, we got the police services, and the whole rigmarole. And so you got three insiders today. If you do not know, then Vibhuti Jha ji is also an ex-bureaucrat from the RBI.
That's true.
Of course, I am dyed-in-the-wool bureaucrat, and Abhijit Iyer Mitra is son of two bureaucrats. Both mother and father were bureaucrats.
Yes.
And of course, he says that the best advice they gave him was never to even attempt going anywhere near the civil services. Well, he had the benefit of too much of experience within his family, which I don't think I had. I don't know about you.
I had no choice. I had to enter bureaucracy. In Bihar, either you don't make it through a competitive exam or you end up being a clerk in some government office there. So, you had to kind of emerge out of that. But in all fairness, I got out of the bureaucracy after a few years in RBI. And I realized that the one thing which did not go well with me was the fact that, you get into the line. And what was so frustrating for me in the very first day in induction in RBI Staff College in Chennai, that everybody was looking at the seniority list. That was so bizarre. अभी हमने नौकरी भी शुरू नहीं की है, induction हो रहा है, लोग seniority list देख रहे हैं, because they wanted to know when will their next promotion will come, how many people are ahead of us and all that. And I said, that's too bad. It had a very insidious effect, Sanjay ji. I do not know about how you experience that. But in RBI, you are an ocean of so many people. So I got the feeling that how can I ever admire, or like you say, like and share? I can't like any senior than me because he's right my obstacle. my obstacle in going forward. So insidious thinking that comes in your mind कि या तो वो next promotion में वो miss कर जाए या मर जाए. That's the only way you can get an accelerated promotion based on
that's pretty much a dog eat dog kind of a situation. Yeah. Of course, it's not that bad in the what is called the civil services because seniority is cast in stone. It never changes.
Never changes.
It never changes.
This is exactly.
You can call it an incentive or you can call it a disincentive. Whatever. That's the way you look at it.
Right.
That's the situation that emerges.
And that's what my friend Kunni Krishnan, who was few numbers ahead of me in the seniority list at the time of selection, he told me very nicely, he said, "Abhe tum kaam karta hai, kaam karega, mistake karega, punishment hoga." So kaam mat karo, aaram se, let it go. You just be yourself, relax, don't make mistakes. There went innovation, incentive, desire to do well out of the window. I was not that type. So, I decided to say goodbye. The day when my boss told me, he was a great mentor. Two of my best mentors in my life were in RBI. And, both of them, one retired as the deputy governor of RBI, the other one as ED of RBI. They encouraged me a lot. But there was one moment when they said that if we were in private sector, we could have done so much more for you. But here, I will can't give you more than giving you outstanding, excellent performance rating and a 60 rupees increment. There is nothing more we can do.
Oh, that's wonderful. I started
That was the
at
pay scale.
when I joined at the scale of 700, 1300, and I was a marine engineer, and I was drawing a princely sum of 5,600 at that time, and I came down to 700 with after DA and all. I was getting about 1,100 rupees. So just imagine. So that was the kind of you can call it wages. It wasn't really a
Yes,
salary.
my first check from RBI was for 1,378 rupees.
Oh
All
wow, you got much more than I did. So
But
that's why
RBI
people go
salary
to
actually, RBI salary was the number one salary in the country. We used to have the A plus. Whatever banks agreed upon, all the commercial banks agreed upon, there will be certain percentage added to that. The Reserve Bank had that A plus salary structure, best amongst all the banks. And, so that's what it is. But that's bureaucracy.
Okay, but the issue today that we are going to discuss is that okay, that there's a lot of churn in the world, there's a lot of churn in the international relations. So we are going to have things like Quad, and we are going to have things like Biden, and we don't know where the US is going, and we are going to have to deal with that same old moribund structure, the bureaucracy. I think was that the frustration behind the Prime Minister actually saying that in Parliament that will the bureaucracy do everything? Oh, and of course, we will get the just waiting for Abhijit to emerge. I believe he had gone for some Gujarati food. That doesn't seem to have agreed over the system. So we keep a tab
As
on
a
you,
rule, never go for
Abhijit.
Gujarati food in Delhi. As a rule, never go for Gujarati food in Delhi. It's going to lead to serious rumble in the jungle kind of issues.
So will you require after 10 minutes you'll require a recess?
I hope not. I hope not.
And just before you came, we were talking about the Gujarati. I mean, I was talking about the Prime Minister telling the bureaucracy that you are not the be all and end all of everything. I mean, all the bureaucrats got a shock. They thought they were the golden plumage. But the plumage, of course, was always looking for the bird. So we were left with the plumage without the bird. And what I was discussing just before you came, I was discussing with Vibhuti Ji. Vibhuti Ji, by the way, is also an ex-bureaucrat, okay? He was in
Yes,
the,
I know.
what is it? Creme de la creme, the RBI, okay? He was an RBI
Yes.
bureaucrat before he left. So we are three insiders here, okay? Because you have experience of two bureaucrats. And the only
Unfortunately,
bureaucrat
yes.
in my family, yes. And he's also a bureaucrat. So three bureaucrats discussing what can we do with the bureaucracy, both Indian as well as the US bureaucracy. That's if people think that US bureaucracy is great, whatever little experience I have, I find that to be as bad as the Indian bureaucracy. Maybe the system there is different, and because they have the revolving door policy, so that kind of takes care of it. So,
So
how do you look at that
the revolving
statement?
door policy
Let me
gives
start
you.
with you. How do you look at that statement from the Prime Minister? And I think some of your trouble with the Gujarati food is because you knew that you were going to deal with that statement as soon as you came in.
No. So the thing is, I was thrilled when he said that. Right. And remember, that was the same week or the following week when he said, the government has no business being in business again. The issue is the first time when he said all these dulcet things, he never acted on them for 7 years. And finally, he says them again. I'm hoping he will act. I'm always hopeful. But, I seldom measure people by the words. I always measure people by their actions. So I am waiting. I am watching. For me, the benchmark will be the privatization of Air India. Uh, they seem to have sort of dug their feet in with the bank privatizations, uh, trying to postpone them and things like that. Let's see. Uh, for me, the entire judgment this term is going to be based on privatizations, because that is one of the most important steps you do in reducing bureaucracy, both the control bureaucracy as well as the operational bureaucracy. But coming back to your point, Sanjay ji, on American bureaucrats, it's both a positive and a negative. On one hand, American bureaucrats, because they're very well staffed and serviced and trained, they actually do a lot of groundwork, unlike, say, our bureaucrats abroad who are not properly trained and woefully understaffed, so that every one of them can become a ambassador at some point in their career. The downside is that revolving door bureaucracy, because people understand that to get into the government, you've got to virtue signal. So you don't end up speaking the truth, you end up virtue signaling. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is that in the current administration, especially, there are way too many virtue signalers. And in the previous administration, it was completely undermined by the number of inside uh, uh, enemies that the Trump administration had, which is sort of a running theme even with the Modi administration, because they seem to have so many enemies from within. And this sort of putra moh ke badle babu moh seems to undermine a lot of the things that they do.
Like either the Indian bureaucracy or the American bureaucracy. But of course, the litmus test, as very soon after this statement, I think within a month of that, we have this classic situation where one of the BJP government goes and imposes the classic bureaucratic quota system in the private sector, and says that, okay, 75% of you, all of you will now be checked by our inspectors, who will go and not only check your registers, they will also check each and every employee. So how's that for bureaucracy? Yeah, Abhijit, you're still on.
Me. So I was just looking at that entire thing about the Haryana reservation. And I'm wondering, the children of bureaucrats in me tells me that this could have only come out of the mind of a bureaucrat, that particular law.
I agree with you 100%.
Because that
Nobody
unique
can be more
level,
clueless than a bureaucrat.
yeah, that unique level of cranial rectal inversion is it's like how the Gangetic dolphin is only found in the Ganges. That particular cranial rectal inversion is only found in a certain kind of UPSC pass person. So on the other hand, how politicians aren't exactly terribly smart. So when you see things like this happen, you don't know what it is. The problem is the bureaucrat and the politician has to act as a check and balance. And to be fair to the bureaucrats, in the early stages of the Nehru administration, they did in many ways try, sometimes not very successfully, but they tried to rein in some of his more reckless adventurism. But they were a disciplined bureaucracy because they ultimately did what they were told by their elected masters. The problem right now is it's not a check and balance anymore when the political executive is completely clueless how to control you, and the political executive is also clueless on how to run an office, too much micromanagement, and they're generally clueless about economics and other things as well. But jab, it's one of those cases where, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. So that is the situation you have right now. But what do? We're stuck with it. Tell me a way out.
Quite right, Vibhuti Ji. Now you are on the other side. You are on this side where the investors were looking at India with great anticipation, if I might say so, and because you are there lining up these investments. How did this Haryana thing go down with the American business or the people or the investors who are looking at India?
Well, it is too early to comment upon that part. However, it is important to know that one of the biggest frustration that Americans have is that 90% of the economy is in the private sector and the businesses. But the important part is that the biggest frustration that the American has is that India has been an absolute charming opportunity, but it has never realized its potential because you never open up enough. That's the biggest challenge, because they never know what will happen next in the economic reform part of it. These people are businessmen. 90% of the economy is in private sector, including the extra sensitive defense sectors. In our country, we don't trust a businessman. These people trust the businessmen because they are also Americans. They are also citizens. They have as much vested interest in protecting the country. But that is one of the biggest frustrations that American has. That India, the moment, and this is true as well in my opinion, because I came here to champion liberalization program, but you are championing the liberalization program where the base is not changing at all. So I remember very clearly, this was the first ever doing business with India seminar we hosted along with Bear Stearns in Washington, D.C. in Four Seasons. And there was Mr. Suresh Kumar was the IS industry secretary at that time. And he brought the India team. Guess what? With the due respect, they didn't even know how to ask for money. I had to tell him, sir, so far you have been in a position to dispense favors. Now you are coming to ask for money. Your tone, tenor, and the style must change. These people are looking for hints, clear signage. You can't say that I will liberalize 10% now, घूंघट में आधा खोलूंगी फिर पूरा बाद में खोलूंगी, वो नहीं होगा. If you want to come into a relationship, then come open-hearted. Then I will wait. When you are fully ready, then I'll come, because I don't want to go through the loops of struggle of trying to come to the country. So this is one of the biggest things. And I think Prime Minister Modi is trying hard. Abhijit is absolutely right. Saying is easy, talk is easy, but doing things is difficult. And that's what we have to remember, one thing, that we Indians particularly, and I can speak as an Indian about this, I have combined two words, sentimental and emotional. And I say we Indians are very sentimental about everything. So America ko aisa karna chahiye. Why don't we fix ourselves first? As we have said before, we have talked many times before, that to be able to contest about our way of life, we have to know what our way of life is. Otherwise, how can we ever talk about Sanatan Dharma? We have to get over the sentimentality of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam and recognize the reality of logic and pragmatism, that even family has to live with conflicts. There is a thing called brothers and sisters, they all fight. There is always a war in the family as well. We know that. So the question is to recognize that reality, that Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam is great, but there is always a squabble for one reason or the other. Everybody knows, every single person knows what India wants and what America wants. Indians know what America wants and America knows what India wants. But then why aren't we coming together? So unless and until we realize the root causes of it. So from my point of view, the root cause of it is India must liberalize. What I have asked also conversely of American politicians, I tell them that when we make a change in India, it induces pain to somebody. 1.3 billion people, not all of them are going to be happy. So you privatize Air India, but then you have unions who are clamoring for their pound of flesh. You try to talk about bank privatization, which is much needed in my opinion. There is no concept of cost of money in Indian banks. They just don't operate on that basis. So as a result of which, what happens is you try liberalization, unions will be unhappy. Somebody will be unhappy. And I'm telling Americans, at that time, don't interfere in the name of human rights and freedom of speech, because we have our own territorial imperatives and we got to fix that. If we don't fix it, then don't complain. If you become an obstacle in our corrective measures, then you are undermining a fellow democracy whose support you need going forward. We all know that China has been a problem for India since 1962 and ever since then, including up to Galwan. America recognizes that. For India to become a real big power, we need to gain strong economic support within ourselves. Bureaucracy, to, bureaucracy, as Abhijit was talking about, the cranial rectum part of it, is a part of a body. Like every part of your body has a function to perform. So bureaucracy is that part of the body which nobody likes, but it is essential. You have to have some institution to implement the laws, carry forward the message, protect and defend. But when they become, like Abhijit said, rectum scenario, the famous joke about it, that when there was a debate about who is the most important part in the body politic, so the brain, the hands, the eyes, everybody talked about it, until somebody squealed, "What about me?" And everybody laughed at him that, "Hey, you are the rectum, you are least important." And there came a moment in time when the brain gave the instruction, get the stuff out of the body, and rectum said, "Sorry, I'm not letting it go." That, the moral of the story. That's the point which is to be important to be remembered, that is an essential part of the process, but it must function smoothly when the time comes. And that's the important part of bureaucracy. I can regale you with stories of RBI where I was there for a few years. The first case I got, this is a very important one. When I write my autobiography, I will refer to this case. When I was in the export section, a file came to me of an exporter who had been given on P form some $200, $300 those days for 7-day trip. There was a requirement that when he comes back, he has to submit a detailed report about where he went, who he met, how much he spent, to account for the foreign exchange, that the scarce foreign exchange the country had given him. The report came to me. I was supposed to evaluate a report, and I asked the clerk grade 1, which is the senior most clerk in the clerical cadre, how am I to know this guy actually did this? We should have verified this prior to his departure, right? Because after he goes back and comes back, $500 के लिए हम क्यों अपना time waste कर रहे हैं? Are we going to refer this matter to ED? Not at all. So I said, let's get rid of this entire process. The entire clerical group people said, "You are trying to change the precedents. You young guys don't know the Reserve Bank culture." I say, it's not about precedents. This is something I can't do. I only have to sign off. Why are we doing this? Eventually, believe it or not, that mentor of RBI, he agreed with me. We submitted a note to RBI, and that practice was dispensed with. Point is that change happens because somebody is awake. Otherwise, we will never change. Bureaucracy is there to do a job. If they are told to do, the political leadership is important here to determine. It can't be the bureaucrat in India is a very strong pillar. As the saying goes, the cows may come and cows may go. I'm referring to politicians here, but the bull in this place will remain forever. That's what the Indian bureaucracy is all about. So if you are going to be there forever, you've got to do your job. So that's what is important. Yeah.
That reminds me of my troubles within the system, because I had some kind of a principle that if something could be signed off at my desk, then I would not send it up.
Right.
And that always created problem, because people expected that even if I was responsible for the decision, I should still send it up and get approval. So that's what breathed in the entire Indian bureaucracy, the system of kicking things up. Whatever you get, you simply kick it up. And what happens in this kicking up system is that the lowest functionary, which is, I think, an undersecretary in the government of India, and happens to be an assistant secretary in the state governments. Most state governments have those designations. Whatever they write, sometimes even clerks, whatever they write, that becomes final. Because everybody else thinks that, okay, that he's written something, if I read something, that maybe there will be an inquiry 10 years down the line, something will happen. One of the biggest problems used to be the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988, which had some very, very vague provisions to determine abuse of power. And that scared people so much that I think very nigh 10 years, there was complete standstill in the bureaucracy. And they were always kicking the can down the road. इसको इधर फेंक दो, इसको उधर फेंक दो, कमेटी बना दो, फिर कोई GOM बना दो, फिर कोई ग्रुप ऑफ सेक्रेटरीज बना दो, फिर इंटर मिनिस्ट्रियल कमेटी बना दो, and keep doing that. And after a decision is sent up to the second set of groups, this is how the things had been going. But the thing is that it has got so much ingrained that in spite of amendment in the Prevention of Corruption Act, a very good amendment according to me, the old habits die hard. Abhijit, have you noticed this?
Sorry, I can't hear. It's
He said old habits die hard. And even
old
though
habit. किसके old habits though?
bureaucracy ke.
You didn't hear anything of what I said?
See, the thing is, no, because today we were tweeting about some other old habits die hard. So I thought you had shifted there. There's a lag, and I'm sorry if my voice shifts. Let me know. I don't know if you can hear me because I'm having internet problems as well, in addition to stomach problems.
I can hear you.
We can hear you loud and clear.
See, for old habits to die hard, you need a new accountability system first to change those old habits. Where is the system of accountability in order to even incentivize a change of habits in the first place? So this isn't a case of old habits die hard. This is a case of old habits continuing because the old system continues. Nothing has really changed. If anything, we've seen an enormously empowered bureaucracy, in fact, an enormously empowered lower bureaucracy, where every tax collector has turned into a thulla again because of GST, because of the way they can manipulate the GST figures and send you off into arbitration 300, 400 kilometers away from your home and turn life into a living misery for every small trader. This is bureaucratic empowerment like never before. And see, ultimately, I know this is a bit rude saying this in this company, but ultimately the bureaucracy we have in this country is fundamentally a rent-seeking bureaucracy in that case. Right? I mean, call it corruption or bribery or whatever you want, but it is what it is. So there's nothing much that's going to happen. It's not even a case of old habits die hard. If you want a new habit to even emerge, accountability hona chahiye na. Today we have corruption that is masked by incompetence, because corruption can be punished, incompetence can't. So you perpetually pretend to be incompetent. Now you look at the Cairn judgment, for example. It's gone into arbitration and you've lost the arbitration and you've had to pay a huge amount. You intend to challenge that as well. But the clowns who made the judgment in the bad judgment in the first place to impose these rules, India will pay a heavy price for it in loss of foreign investor confidence and things like that. But those guys will never pay a price for it. If you are allowed the freedom to take decisions without consequence, that's never been a good management practice anywhere. So it's not a case of old habits dying hard. It's just a case of things have gone on. Nothing's changed.
If I may jump in here, Abhijit is absolutely right about accountability in our work that we do with large corporations, because large corporations also have their own bureaucracy. So like I say, it's part of your essential body politic. Bureaucracy is needed to enforce laws, enforce regulations, and come to certain terms and conditions. But if you do not have the ability to take decisions, and if your decisions are camouflaged with the intent to save your own little whatever, then you are always playing a safe game. And that's the biggest challenge. So when we do the work, because one thing is also very important. I mean, I have not come across, the three of us are looking at each other. I don't think either one of us has not desired to do their best in whatever circumstances we were put in. We wanted to do good. The reason why you do not, or you fail to do, is because you get stuck in the process, what Abhijit was talking about. We get stuck in the process. And then Like my Kunni Krishnan told me, क्यों काम करते हो? काम करोगे, mistake करोगे, तुम्हारा confidential report खराब हो जाएगा, तुमको promotion miss कर जाओगे, एक बार promotion miss करोगे, life में खत्म हो गया. That is the biggest challenge. That senior people even say the competency for a particular assignment. If that accountability comes in the process, things will become better. India has Indian Engineering Service. India has audits and accounts. India has railway service. There are economic service, statistical service. There are all specialized services exist. But the general administration of Indian Administrative Service, uska mai baap ban gaya hai. So when you become, with all due respect to the governor of RBI, he is a student of MA history. How does he understand the entire process of? He may have intellect. I'm not doubting that. He may be the best governor RBI ever had. But apply that principle that if he were running an Indian IT industry, how would he fare there? So we have to introduce the concept of accountability via these services. Let people run departments or industry. I mean, how can I, as a student of economics, become Secretary of Fishery and Agriculture? I feel I will not work there. I will not survive. So what happens? Then I appoint a special committee. I want expert committee. I want select committee to help me take a decision. And in the process, the decision making gets delayed. And that's where the efficiency factor goes out of the window. That's what happened in the banks. Believe me or not, I'll share with you one of my experiences. My boss told me, we want to make a breakthrough with a particular company, name withheld, of course. The company was a British bank, British company, huge mega multinational company. I met the director of finance and I said, how can I help you? Cut the story short, they had severe liquidity problem. It was related to certain government department not paying in time. I solved the problem. We overcame the problem via the fact that we got the securitization through process that was totally unheard of. We got the securitization. Both the board, India board and the UK board approved that in 90 days we will return you the money. It worked. When I met the Secretary of Agriculture, that can you send their check directly to us instead of sending it to the company? They said, no, we can't do that. We don't deal with foreign banks. I said, you're not dealing with a foreigner. You're dealing with an Indian who is serving your clientele and your constituency to provide liquidity in the system. Believe it or not, Sanjay ji and Abhijit, we created such a fabulous product that we were providers of liquidity because we took money in call money market from the commercial banks who were sitting on funds because they were doing massive deposit mobilization, paying interest. They had no concept of cost of money. We took money from them at 6%, lent it at 15%. Think about where the entire industry, it was a win-win-win situation. For us, creating the product, making the system work, capital was efficient, banks' money was deployed, they made money, the client was happy, they became operational. The entire system functioned. Someday I will mention this, but suffice to say that this is where the bureaucracy, when the IS officer, secretary to Ministry of Agriculture in India, made that statement that you are traitors to the nation. That's the mentality that must go. And I don't know, I hope I think that's what Prime Minister was referring to. The bureaucracy can't do everything. Not that he is not a bright man. Nothing wrong with the intelligence, capability and everything else, but the delivery is the key. At every point in time, delivery becomes important. If you deliver, that's great.
Point on this, from the other side, that is because I think the reason that the Indian politician is not able to reform the bureaucracy or becomes over dependent on the bureaucracy is also because of our political system, where the Indian politician has to go to an election every few years. And I think that is the reason why Narendra Modi also depends on so many people through the Rajya Sabha route, not through the Lok Sabha route. And because of that fundamental weakness, more so in the states than in the central, because most of the states do not even have that route, only a few have, who have the legislative councils. And because of that, you have no way of actually going to the market and picking the best, as the American president, for instance, has that luxury. that he can pick up people from the market, and they have only to perform their job, and they don't have to bother about getting re-elected, because that burden is entirely either on the president or on the governor. So you think that the system also makes a difference, Abhijit?
Um, System makes a big difference. The issue is, in India, you actually have a system that enables you to, joint secretary and above are ex-cadre positions. There's no rule saying a joint secretary has to be IAS or IFS or anything like that. Yet you insist on putting IFS, IAS into those jobs. And we trumpet lateral entry as something really great. The system is in place for you to replace the entire cadre of joint secretaries, additional secretaries, and secretaries with the private sector and people that you choose. You don't want to do it. Whose problem is that? See, that's a lack of political will. I won't blame the system here. This is a lack of political will. And the people you choose also end up being these so-called mold breakers or disruptors that you end up choosing, so-called self-proclaimed disruptors. They end up being total clowns. Case in point, Jaishankar and Amitabh Kant. I mean, Jaishankar is the Amitabh Kant of the foreign policy world, and Amitabh Kant is the Jaishankar of the investment policy world. What have you gained from having these bureaucrats come into your flagship programs? Nothing. You've still been, has the malicious campaign against India reduced in any way abroad? No. So what was the game changer this man was going to bring in? Nothing. Make in India didn't succeed. Make in India was a spectacular failure. Then you changed the name to Atmanirbhar Bharat. You can keep rebranding things. But if the product is rotten, the product is rotten. End of story. This is why I find that even though the system allows you so much scope for change, you are not using the scope given to you for change. Even the lateral entry bureaucrats who were taken in had to be vetted by existing bureaucrats, not by ministers. The ministers couldn't get who they wanted. They had to take who had been vetted by the bureaucrats, and hence had to have the bureaucratic chapa of approval. And obviously everybody chosen were yes men who have had a stellar career of brown-nosing babus. Oh, what do you expect? This is what you get. And you insist on micromanaging everything. So you don't even want to lay simple thing. Okay? A simple additional thing now. Since you don't want to upset the apple cart with enforcing the fact that joint secretary and above are ex-cadre positions that by law do not have to be given to the IAS, let's bring in something else. Let's bring in performance standards. Okay, performance standards is when there is a new scheme, you determine at what point, what are the parameters under which a scheme is deemed to be a failure. And everybody who presides over a failure scheme is then automatically, their promotion is frozen or they are sacked. You won't even do that. Why? Not that you can't do it. You're so scared in the political executive, even with 300 plus seats. You're scared because you don't know what kind of revenge they're going to wreak on you if you enforce something like that. And you don't have the courage to do a clean sweep either. So let's not blame the system out here. This is political cowardice that we're trying to, blame on a amorphous system. It is not the system. It is not the system, it is the person.
Okay, let's move to Vibhuti Ji. Though we do have the system of picking up the top secretaries and at the discretion of the president, and you have this what is called the transition of the administration, a very big fanfare. But even there is a permanent bureaucracy in the US, isn't it?
The bureaucrats who are serving in the administration. They don't fill up, but yeah, they can bring in. They have the ability to bring in, to advance the agenda of the president or the party, as the case may be. So you're absolutely right. There is a bureaucracy. There is people apply for those jobs. Those jobs are not highly paid. The joke in America is that those who can't make it successful in the private sector go in the government. Although I must say this, the selection process is very tough. It's very tough. Another interesting part, you were talking about that the politician is in India always has to fight election every 5 years. The politician as a breed everywhere is the same. Everywhere is the same. Here also people have to fight elections. They have gerrymandering of districts through which they ensure they win. The term limit didn't work here. People don't want term limits. They want to be, but there is one big difference. You will find that people who entered politics here, they have been successful in business. वहाँ पैसे पूरे कमा लिए हैं. Politics is not their life. That's why in America they call it public service. So they accept lower pay scale. They do not have $1 million salaries in the government, but they come here for public service. That's the reason. Because you have enormous power, they put you through a grill of vetting. You have seen that process the way it happens. Senator, committee assessment. What did you do in the past? Your entire history gets opened up. What you did as a student, like sometimes you hear in the movies, they say the police guy says, get me who was his school teacher and everything else. They want to know everything about you because they put you on a pedestal that you have sacrificed your money-making venture to join politics. And that's how there are people who retire from politics here. They don't quit because they have entered public service. That is the important part that we have to remember, that the system here is designed in a different way. And that's why I say that it's very tough. The public service is very tough for various appointees. Look at what happened to that lady. I forget her name right now. She could not pass the muster to confirmation for the $1 trillion Office of Budget Management, OBM. The Indian lady.
Tandon lady.
Neera Tandon, yeah, that's right. So she lost the job because she had posted tweets and things like that, which was not considered satisfactory. You can do whatever you like, whatever you want to do in your private life, but you are entering public life, then you have to be, as I said, politicians and bureaucrats, they have to be more virgin than Virgin Mary. They have to be holier than the Pope, and they have to have the ability to take brickbats and stones thrown at when you are being crucified. so that way the process is tough. Yeah.
Okay. So what we do now is that, we have hit that 45 minutes mark. So we will open it up for questions and answers. And we have a lot of question and answer coming up already. Before doing that, I request all my viewers, as usual, to please like and share the video, subscribe the channel, press the bell icon, and of course, contribute to us as much as you can. That's what keeps us going. So move to questions and answers, please.
Press the bell icon on YouTube and don't miss another update.
ओके निनाद, इंडिया के बाबूस का आईक्यू लेवल जयशंकर के रिप्लाई से दिख गया। शायद साहब किसी के मरने के बाद मुद्दा उठाएंगे यूके के साथ। Abhijit was spot on him. Well, okay, but I thought he did answer quite well when talking about the Freedom House and stuff like that. Abhijit?
Did a terrible job in both instances, at the India Today conclave and then in Parliament. In India Today, instead of attacking the methodology of the report, or their motive or their intent, he gives you the classic third world Nehruvian reply, which is petulance, petulance, and more petulance. Number one. Number two, when he comes in Parliament, This girl has been hounded. She's so stressed out, she doesn't even feel safe in the UK. She's come back and she's in hospital on a drip. And he says, we will take it up at an appropriate time. What is the appropriate time for this? When she'd been hanged from a light pole in Oxford, when they doused her in kerosene and set her on fire. What is the appropriate time? I want to know from this fellow, what is the appropriate time? इसको मेथोडोलॉजी के बारे में पता नहीं है, इसको appropriate time के बारे में पता नहीं है. Remember, why has India been downgraded? It's because of a string of reports that came out during the Seelampur riots, which became Shaheen Bagh, which became the Delhi riots, which you allowed to go absolutely uncontested. You did not have somebody like, do you remember under Vajpayee, we used to have Pramod Mahajan, who used to come out and, was that Pramod Mahajan? That was Pramod Mahajan, no? Under Vajpayee?
Pramod Mahajan was there under Vajpayee, of course.
Yeah, he used to keep coming out, and he used to hold a press conference every day, and he used to sit and correct all kinds of rubbish news. You don't do that. You never, your official spokesperson did not challenge a single news report that went out at that point of time. Your official spokesperson did not correct a single op-ed, misquoting of fact left, right, and center that was published at that point of time. And when you don't correct any of that, because international indices are based on things like, they can't come and do a census in India, so their data points are the press. When they go by the press itself, you then say you have no, we are not going to sit and take the white man to downgrade us. Those white man downgradings are based on brown man news reports, sir. It wasn't the white man downgrading you. Those white man downgrades are based on brown man news reports. Are the brown people also downgrading you? No. And then, after all the damage that has been done, when the US Committee on Religious Freedoms, or whatever it's called, decides to come and say, hum India ka audit karenge, he then gives, you people can't come here and audit la-di-da, and all these bhakts go crazy. Oh, dekho kitne tagde se jawab diye.
They have not been allowed for over a decade. Even the UP didn't allow it.
So what did he say that was new? What is he said that was done that was new, that everybody was pretending as if the sun shone out of his ass? ये कौन सा नया कमाल किया है इसने? आप बताओ कौन सा नया कमाल किया है इसने? कुछ नहीं. Talking about expanding the bureaucracy, has he even done that? No. He's actually presided over a shrinking of the MEA. Right. So what is he doing? Where is this brilliance that everybody talks about? I have never seen any example of this brilliance in public. Maybe his brilliance is as much of a state secret as India's nuclear arsenal, that it's kept hidden somewhere in a bunker. It never sees the light of day. And it requires, the three-man rule, where somebody from the DRDO has to come, somebody from the army has to come, and somebody from the PMO has to come, in order for all three of those fail-safes to be fused together on the battlefield and then loaded onto the missile before it's actually fired.
So Abhijit, then in that case, let me interject with a point here. Earlier you said there's nothing wrong with the system. Now you are saying he's a part of the system, and that's what is wrong. So
no, he's not part of the system.
He may not be a politician, but he's definitely a bureaucrat. He knows what has happened in the world around, and he has made certain good statements, and I think I give him credit for that. About the Freedom House thing, I agree with you. Ministry of External Affairs issued point-by-point rebuttal. I said, it's not that you are not responding to the government of the United States, that you have to give a point-by-point. Freedom House is an independent body. They snatched away the map of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh completely. I would have said first demand insertion of the map in the map of India, then talk. We do not lay down the grounders. That's what is important. We indulge in absolute general sentimentality and make everything emotional. Let's not do that. Fact is fact, truth is truth. It's like saying that, yesterday I was listening to Bill here on this program. Ask a question. Don't threaten a question. Ask a question, make an inquiry. That's what is important for us to do. We are not laying good markers. We always depend upon Western institutions. And West is very smart. You've got to give them credit. They have established institutions by which they measure you. Like, for example, why do we have to subscribe to the American system of education? We did 12-3-2 up to master's level. They have a different measuring of this. So we have to do one more year of class here, right? Because we are coming here. We don't have any such standards for ourselves. And we don't have standards, then we adopt Western standard. And when they measure us, then we say, don't measure us. That's our problem. That's what I call general sentimentality. Oscar mil gaya to bahut acha hai. Nahi mile to bekar hai. That's endorsement that we are looking for, is what allows the West to impose on us. Our body did. So they created institutions. And we have not. Our bureaucracy, India needs to create its own markers. That's what I'm trying to say here. The Indian bureaucracy becomes stronger. I'm not saying don't become strong. Become stronger.
See, the problem is,
and that makes you wonder here.
Can I interject here?
Of course, there was one question.
I give you an example. That India sends the second largest number of students to United States.
Yes, right.
And we don't have a rating system for the American universities. Why not?
Absolutely right. Yeah.
That we are the second largest spender on education. Our students spend the second largest amount after China. And we don't have a system to rate those universities. Start rating them, and then you'll see how they'll come down licking your feet.
Correct. We have not created that in India. Everybody is happy going abroad. That's the general sentiment. Hum America ja rahe hain, kahan pad rahe hain, wo doesn't matter. And we all know how the education system is here. Syracuse University has the best telecommunication program or broadcasting program. Those who want to do, they don't need to go to Harvard. They need to go to Syracuse University. Likewise, there are specialized institutions. They're doing very well. We must do the rating. And we are the biggest
issue with the rating is, I disagree here. I'll tell you why. The problem with the rating is, even if we do a rating, it is going to be based on press reports. हमारे तो इतने bureaucrats भी नहीं हैं that they can do groundwork and report back accurately on foreign governments. They themselves, even though sitting in New York, they only read New York Times and things like that and report back to Delhi. कहां से आपके अगर आपने एक ऐसे डेमोक्रेसी रिपोर्ट तैयार भी किया, you can't change the nature of press reporting. Your data points are still going to be the same press reports. It's very bad strategizing by the NEA.
They can collaborate with the Jaipur dialogues. We will prepare it for them.
Right, but see, you have to go abroad and then collect data points on the ground. Because you can't say that data points from the press in India are wrong, but data points from the press in America are right.
No,
because these are press data
anyway,
points. Let's not forget.
Let's move to the next question. I think we have this question has taken too long a time. Now, this question to Vibhuti Ji and Abhijit. Did you see the report today on internet which said Putin approved operation to swing election 2020 for Trump? Well, that's not related to our talks today, so I'm going to pass it over.
Yes.
Subu, worst experience with public sector banks. Vibhuti Ji, there it comes. Treated like crap. Lost 1 year getting student loan 14 years ago. Once I became NRI, was treated like a king. Ironic and moronic to treat residents versus NRI like this. Yes, sir. Vibhuti Ji.
Yeah, I have a very simple example for this, that service standards in the public sector banks it used to be very bad. I'll give you a very nice, my MBA batchmate, got a PhD scholarship here. He went to State Bank of India to get his foreign currency to come out. सब कुछ कागज का काम करना था उसको. Now he went to banks and they made him run around for $300, $400 worth of whatever he had to send. Came to me. So I said, okay. I called my operations manager. I said, here is Naga is coming to you. You know, one Tamilian to another Tamilian. Just get him the thing out and be done with. Nagaraj came back to me in 20 minutes. He says, "Maan gaye tumko yaar. Public sector banks made me run for 5 days and none of them did my job. You guys did it in 20 minutes." So that's why I said, "But you charge me a hefty fee." I said, "Yeah, that's why we are expensive." But the point of the matter is, the quality of service standards are very poor. There was a day in Delhi, executive director of finance of a major company, loitered in my office. And fortunately, I was in the office. So, आके मेरे पास बैठे, चाय पिलाया, कॉफी पिलाया. मैंने कहा कि आज अनअनाउंस्ड अराइवल कैसे हुआ? अरे स्टेट बैंक ऑफ इंडिया से जनरल मैनेजर के साथ मीटिंग थी. $4 million की एलसी चाहिए. साला 2 बोर्ड मीटिंग निकल गया, अभी तक उन्होंने अप्रूव नहीं किया है. तो मैंने कहा कि आपके पास हमारे पास फैसिलिटी पड़ी है, आप ले लीजिए. So can you do that? I said, of course I can do that. So in 2 days, we gave him $5 million worth of LC. We charged him the fee. He said, "जहाँ साहब बड़े महंगे हो आप." हमने कहा कि आप 6 महीने से आप तड़प रहे थे इस LC के लिए. हमने 2 दिन में कर दिया और आप कह रहे हैं हम महंगे हैं. That is the mentality that is existing in the minds of people. And this is the mentality that exists in the public sector banks, that their service standards were very poor. There was no hurry. There was no accountability that Abhijit was talking about. We had accountability. I got that approved additional limit in 2 days' time. It is the speed of action that is important. That's why we always say.
Yes, I agree.
Even in the time of change.
I'm going to go a little faster now.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. A little bit of rapid fire now.
Yes, absolutely.
Prasanna Joshi, in India, even private sector, एक बंदा काम करता है, बाकी 99 उसके ऊपर जीते हैं. What to expect out of government employee? वो तो हम पे उपकार कर रहे हैं. Well, I think it's very nicely put. I think 199 तो नहीं है, थोड़ा सा exaggeration है इसमें.
No, 199 है. अगर आप जाओगे इमिग्रेशन काउंटर पे आप जाओ एयरपोर्ट में, बस एक ही बंदा जल्दी काम करते रहता है, बाकी सब गप्पे मारते रहते हैं.
No, we're talking about private sector. Private sector is not 199.
Private sector में तो नहीं. I thought he said public sector, no? Okay.
Can we get that question back, please?
It was private sector.
I think it was private sector.
Anyway, let's move on.
Okay.
We
Question
have
is lost.
a lot more.
Next one. Should there be a limit to the number of civil servants in every ministry? Vijit says we need more. Every ministry has a number of secretaries, sub-secretaries. The colonial hangover region, we have squandered so many opportunities. So, Abhijit, he's saying that we have too many. You're saying we need more.
No. We probably need more. We just need their functions to be curtailed to the basic minimum functions. Okay, and lateral hiring. Lateral hiring, basically no joint secretary, additional secretary or secretary should be from the IAS, IFS or any of these services. Full stop.
I've always had a standard solution for this. I've said that the central staffing system that we have today, it should not be on the basis of reports. You have an open examination once again, where you allow all the bureaucrats to compete and you also allow other people to compete. Let them all compete. And of course, allied to that is that same thing should happen to the judiciary as well. But then the judiciary that's a different level of heaven. Okay, Chaitanya, Vibhuti sir, namaskar. I would like to ask you to clarify about USA, where some Indians are saying that 75% reservation is equivalent of some jobs in USA requiring the state citizenship to get the job.
I do not know about that. Some Indians say 75% reservation is equivalent of some jobs in USA requiring the state citizenship to get the job. If there is anything I do not know, but I know the students part of it. If the students want to avail of the state university programs, then the fee is less if you are a resident of that state. But if tomorrow, if I want to apply for a job in Alabama government, there is no restriction on that. Not to my knowledge.
Okay, next.
I hope I got the question correctly.
Yes, the question you got absolutely correct. Shashank Sharma, the judgments are reversed in appeals. Shouldn't the judge who made first judgment should be sacked? No. That's never happens, because that is he's exercising a judgment.
No.
He's entitled to make an error. Ninad Shirsagar, sir, my city Nagpur is in lockdown, and after imposing it, the cases are actually rising, not decreasing. These babus can't think anything beyond it. Don't blame the babus, blame the public. I don't agree with you at all over here. I see the way the people are flouting the restrictions that are being given. It's nobody's business blaming the babu. Sorry. What happened?
I'm sorry, there's too much breakage happening. I'm trying to switch off my camera so that I get a bandwidth. I think it's a bandwidth problem on my side.
You're perfectly fine right now.
Yeah, we could hear you loud and clear. Anyway, next one. Aim, do you think the government incompetence be the major downfall of Hindutva? Huh?
Yes, it will. It will. Yes.
No, I don't make the connection.
If Hindutva has to be based on this kind of governance, then Hindutva has no future. It's really that.
I'm still a bit fogged about it. Well, Vibhuti Ji, can you enlighten me?
I think he's referring to the fact that it's a BJP government, and if the BJP government doesn't deliver on the economic promises, that will lead to the downfall of the BJP principles and practices, which essentially are about the right of center and talking about conservatism to grow the economy. I think that is the reason why that question is hitting at. If BJP doesn't succeed, if Modi doesn't succeed, that will be the end all of Hindutva as we know it. We will have no justification to say that, hey, we are good, because our system did work.
Well, Modi never came on the Hindutva plank in the first place.
But I think that's
it doesn't seem to be supporting Hindutva in any manner in any case. The only thing that has happened is that because he doesn't hound the Hindutva people, so they are able to articulate themselves and they are able to consolidate themselves and demand a few things. That's all. So I don't agree with this question at all. Thakur Rohit Jairaj Singh, I am 100% Indian and Indian resident, getting lots of stimulus package from USA government. Is this a problem in USA bureaucracy? No instruction to return it, no communication, just money coming in.
well,
That's
you
a
just
different
know the
sort of
lottery.
problem.
What are you complaining about? And if you are feeling so indignant about it, that obviously there is a problem. As you can see, data is definitely not correct. So if you feel that it is wrong, then show them the path and return it. At least the smaller check, return it. Bigger check, keep it.
But this actually leads to kind of the economic collapse that you have subprime crisis.
Right.
That's
Not
all
everything is 100% perfect anywhere, and United States is no exception to that.
Praveen Kha says, sir, where is the accountability for bureaucrats, IPS, and judges? Once they are in, they cannot be changed to 35 years, unlike politicians. Every 5 years, they can be changed. Example, no cases pending in courts. Yeah, but this we largely agree with you. All of us discussed this right in the beginning.
Right.
That this situation is not desirable.
About the courts, I have one suggestion. I mean, somewhere along the line, there has to be a reform in the justice system where you make the cases end in a time-bound fashion. It can't be lingering on for years for one reason or the other. That is the greatest reason why the corruption also has come in the justice system. That's the sad part. There has to be.
That's a different level of problem as far as the Indian judiciary is concerned. And I think we probably need a different session for that. Yeah, Abhijit, you're saying something. No, can't hear. No, you're not audible.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. See,
Yes,
for the
yes.
IAS and IPS, you've got Rule 56J where you can sack people. The problem is the government is usually too scared to use that. Okay. For judges, it's quite simple. You see, there's something called the basic structure judgment, which itself, I believe, ultra biased to the constitution, because every other branch of government is regulated by another branch. Here, the judiciary claimed that it would be the only branch that would not be regulated by any other branch except by itself, with absolutely no accountability. So one is you have to declare that to be untenable right now and shove it down with a parliamentary majority that you have, number one. Number two, you need to make promotion of judges based on if they've got no more pendency left in their cases anymore. Okay, if they have pendency, they can't move on to a higher office or to another office. Full stop. If you make their promotions dependent on pendency, you will not have pendency. It's really that simple.
Abhijit,
And that's
Abhijit.
what I always talk about, introducing India.
No. It's not as simple as that. I speak now. I wear my new hat, that of a lawyer practicing in a high court. So that new hat, I tell you, there are judges, I know judges, who have no pendency, never have any pendency. But they have never written a speaking judgment. There are lots of judges who know how to keep pendencies low, but then the way they do it, I mean, that's only what is called a travesty of the judicial system. So, that's what I said. For judiciary, we need a full-fledged separate session. Let's not mix it up with the bureaucracy, because they have appropriated powers under the constitution which did not belong to them. You know that.
Exactly.
Pranjal, looks like government talk on Indian students' abuse abroad is just talk. No action taken so far, nothing from Indian ambassador to UK. Instead, Harvard and Princeton might end up setting shop in India.
Look, it comes back to the same thing, that we have to begin to define our own standards. If we do not, people are passing inane, silly resolutions against India. Why doesn't Chikmagalur or Kadapa or Jumri Talaya begin to issue resolutions of condemning racial and attacks here? Why don't we do that? I'm not saying interfere, but begin to get proactive. We have a general sentimentality ki jo foreign gaya wo barbad hai, desh chhod ke chala gaya. Don't treat anybody like that. I didn't come to the country because I left India. I came to this country for a very specific purpose. And I began to understand why people are here. And nothing prevents anybody from going back. So don't treat, India has to begin to draw its own line. And that's what is important. India has to begin to do its own performance yardsticks. Accountability is a big element of that.
Okay, next is, where is India with enablement of all government services so a normal human never has to interface with government servant? Well, all I can say, it's a lot better, but a long way to go. Of course, it's a lot better. I can say that from my experience. Abhijit?
Oh, great. Yes. Just to reiterate, CPJ, Center for the Protection of Journalists. It's a much more reliable, very, very meticulously researched database and handle for journalist protection in India. They don't differentiate between India and globally. They don't differentiate between, vernacular language journalists, small town journalists, and big celebrity journalists. They speak up for everybody, and they're very clear on who they speak up for and what grounds they're speaking up on, and they maintain their standards evenly. They don't change standards based on he is right-wing, left-wing. So if you're actually interested in press freedom, go follow CPJ on Twitter. So thank you for reminding me about that, Shashank. Just to reiterate that for all our viewers.
Yeah, okay. I would like to thank Abhijit sir who recommended CPJ
This
as
is
a
the
single
question we were
point of-
responding to.
Okay. Why is this coming up again and again? Yogesh Patel. Jharkhand also put 75% reservation norms. Do we have a future in private sector? I'm very sad. Don't worry. All this is standard, what is called political practice. It is 100% ultra virus the constitution, and it will be struck down. And again, I'm wearing my other hat as a constitutional expert. Abhijit Sudhakar. Abhijit sir, I am an MS student. What can I do to awaken Hindus and embassy, even foreign minister? And I am an Iyengar, so he's a competitor. Okay, Iyer versus Iyengar.
So, Abhijit, the best thing you can do is convert to Ierism. Okay. Because everybody knows Iyers are highly superior. We are God's shadow upon earth. But, other than that, what you do is do not join the civil services, join the private sector, and do what you can out there. Every Hindu, every Indian has a role to play. Government is not the best place for you to do it. It's outside, it's doing little things for the community as and when you can, and those little things add up. So that's the best thing. But for starters, convert out from Iyengarism to Iyerism. Raise yourself, enlighten yourself.
Okay, is it true that the CBI director is worth 200 crore? I'll ask my friend Nageshwar Rao how much he is worth. If true, what is being done about it? As far as I know, he didn't look like somebody who has 200 crores. Even 2 crores, I doubt. There is so much tax chori at ordinary level. So need to have. This is more of a statement. I don't think it's a question. So निनाद शीर सागर से ये राकेश अस्थाना में इतना क्या खास है कि उसको बीएसएफ और एनसीबी दोनों का डीजी बनाया है? इज ही सम काइंड ऑफ सुपरमैन? भाई साहब, ब्यूरोक्रेसी में ये सब फ्लूक चलता है, किसको कब चार्ज मिल जाए, और व्हेन ही लूजेस ऑल चार्जेस, इसका कुछ पता नहीं चलता. Nobody comes to know all these things. These are what is called karma, the cycle of karma as far as the bureaucracy is concerned. I used to apply UPSC vacancies have been on a ridiculous downfall since 6-7 years, let alone expanding the bureaucracy. Well, actually, when we talk about expanding the bureaucracy, we talk about expanding specific areas of bureaucracy, not every area. I mean, I don't think you need too many IAS officers for that matter. Yeah, so it's a generalized statement. You could have a lot of differentiation here. Next. Krishna Bhargav, how can we replace imperial administration service with think tanks or other models? Sagarika Ghosh think tank, or Rajdeep Sardesai think tank, or Abhijit Iyer think tank? Which one? Take your pick.
Look, unfortunately, in this country, think tanks don't think. And if you're looking at the American model, what we've seen is one of the reasons people are so upset with Trump is because he proved 70 years worth of collective think tanking on the Middle East completely wrong.
Right.
Okay. He basically made fools of every so-called Middle East expert in Washington, D.C. He is one president who has presided over more Israel peace accords than the previous 10, 15 presidents have, which says a lot, right? So I'm not sure think tanks are the way of doing this thing, because think tanks are also a lot about getting into government. In America, they're about getting into government. In India, they're about getting government largesse. Okay, in India, you want to seem to be close to the government, so you say what the government wants to hear. In America, you say what the party wants to hear and what backs up the party, because that is your route into government later on. So it's either getting into government or being proximate to government. So the think tank model, as much as it's praised, is a broken system. Returning EC revolt, I don't understand what the second part of the question is at all.
Returning officers of EC. Hello. Bureaucrats are Iyengars, period. That's a nice one.
The
That's a
bad
good one.
bureaucrats are. The good ones are Iyer.
Aniruddin Nambi, has the Hindu American NRI established schools or universities to propagate our dharma, provide alternative options for our students? What is the use of just building temples for prestige's sake without creating its associated ecosystem? Vibhuti Ji, this is...
There is a Hindu University of America. It was set up way back in 1993. Didn't become very successful for a variety of reasons. One of them, which I would call it the classic inertia and the commitment part of it, but they have become very active now. I hosted them on my program, and they have launched a lot of e-based programs now, including you'll be happy to know, parents and children to do a joint course about Hinduism, to teach them about what Hinduism is all about. So Hindu University of America is there. However, I must say this, that there are not too many of them. We somewhere along the line, we don't have the business mindset. And that's what is important for us to learn. So let the temples be built. It is the stage by stage. You'll be surprised to know how other communities take advantage of systems here. So not too far from, in one of my friend's neighborhood, some guys came, created a tiny mosque, and the entire area is now infiltrated with Muslims there. He is planning to leave from there because the government gives you facility and money to build mosques or religious places. So there is nothing preventing us from building temples. Let's build one. But you are right that you have to create ecosystem as well. Hindus are, and Indians particularly, are not very politically savvy. Other communities demand. We don't. We are happy
Okay.
where we are. That's the difference.
Okay, let's move to the next one. What is the then again, what is the manpower and or material contribution of Hindu American NRIs to the US Army or local police forces? Is it effective to just tout about our soft power without any hard power from within? Yes, Vibhuti.
I do know that at least I know about New York State here. In New York City, for example, there is a significant chunk of Indians who are out there in police force. However, they are only now getting organized. As an Indian, believe it or not, for one of the India Day parades, I was in there, and the guy standing next to me was a sergeant, and he was an Indian. I said, for this particular India-related parade, where are the others? He said something remarkably sad. He said, others do not want to be identified as Indians. Whatever the reason, we are going to have a talk on it. But yes, there is a lack of self-pride amongst us. As if, so whatever the reason may be, I totally agree with your other statement, Aniruddha, that, what is the point of soft power if you're not backed by hard power? You need both. There is no point
next.
to be nice guys.
How much AI replaced bureaucracy? Oh, and AI, I don't think AI replaces bureaucracy. It replaces different kind of systems, not the bureaucracy.
This fantasy of technology being all our solution, this was such a Nehruvian idea. Every time there's a human failing, you don't want to invest in humans, you say, let's go to technology. Okay. Technology is not a substitute for humans, boss, not even AI. All right. So stop think AI, ultimately the quality of AI depends on the human programming it. So
Okay, what are your
you've got
views on, what are your views on 15th Finance Commission recommendation on defense fund? Abhijit, you'd like to take it?
no, because I haven't read the Finance Commission.
Nor have I.
I have no
So
idea.
we have to plead inability. So they develop, if liberal government in France can take tough stance on Islamic jihadis for national security, why Modi ji not bringing in laws to protect India from jihadis? They have the mandate. Yeah, Abhijit, again yours.
So remember, France has a very different polity. Hmm? When Macron takes an anti-jihadist stance, the far left will come at him saying, "You're too weak, boss. You need to go much stronger." Because the left out there is not an identitarian left. The French left is a very, very staunchly anti-religious left. Okay, and the right will also attack Macron for saying you're being too soft. Why? Because they're a staunchly Catholic right, which is against all other religion. Even though they conform to that separation of church and state, they believe that the core should be Christian, but the church and state should be separated. So let's not entirely compare France with India. Okay, there's a fundamental difference in the polity out there, which enables Macron to take these decisions. Now, I admit what this government has done has been extremely lackadaisical. At the same time, remember, there's no point in taking decisions if you're not going to get re-elected. क्योंकि अगर आप re-elect नहीं होगे, then something far worse is going to come in its place. So, I can only talk as to that electoral part of it, because I don't know what the exact electoral calculus that Modi is thinking about, but clearly he knows elections. You don't get to win elections with 280 and then 303 without knowing your own people. So clearly he knows something we don't. But from a policy point of view, it's not good. But in France, you have all these enablers. So that's that.
Okay,
Next.
Abhijit, do you think India having a major Christian population in the future be a problem for India?
Yes, because a first world Christian population is not a problem. A third world Christian population is a problem. Because remember, all Abrahamic faiths are extremely fanatical. And when you mix fanaticism of the Abrahamic faith, of the Abrahamic core, with a pre-industrial, essentially feudal, poor population, that is a powder keg waiting to explode. If you fuse Christianity with a developed population, like is happening in South Korea, it's not a problem for you.
Okay, next. Chaitanya Sanjay, so just like we have 33 gods, should we have 33 ministries, cutting down number of ministries to be? Well, I mean, there are lots of things I can tell you. There are 50s or hundreds of things. So just don't compare with the 33 kind of gods. Anyway, I take that as a question in a lighter vein. Manmohan Soni, thank you, Manmohan ji. As me myself in bureaucracy in India and now working in international diplomacy, I would ask Vibhuti to say why Indian youth need to motivate on entrepreneurship.
You have answered the question, Manmohanji, by saying that why Indian youth need to motivate in entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is the one that gets you forward. It is, in a bureaucracy, you remain in one place, you keep moving in the hierarchy of bureaucracy. But entrepreneurship, which is something that gives you greater satisfaction. And that's where the ability to do something more for the community comes in. It's a very interesting question. Needs longer conversation on entrepreneurship and innovation. My definition of entrepreneurship is very simple. Is innovation is observing the obvious and doing something about it. Entrepreneurship is taking it to the next level of business and enterprise.
Okay. Krishna Bhargav, returning officers of Election Commission, as I understand, are generally IS officers. If their institution is threatened, won't they threaten the dispersion? You see, there's not a single IS officer, uh, as far as I know, who is a returning officer in Vidhan Sabha elections, for instance. Mostly state service officers. So I don't quite understand this generalization. Next. Abhijit Sudhakar, this discussion reminds me of Yes Minister TV show. Oh, so who's Humphrey Appleby in this? Hmm? Abhijit is claiming the honors. No,
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 no, no.
no.
It's true. There's we are discussing Humphrey Applebee's and all of the others.
Yes,
We are
great
not
show.
Humphrey Applebee's out here. And it's amazing how scary it is to actual real life.
Yes,
That's the funny thing. Yes, Minister and yes, Prime Minister. I don't think they realize that it is reality. That is what makes it so funny.
it's a reality show.
Yeah.
Next, Valepan Subramanian is lack of self-pride because Indians under left governments in India have not realized that they are the kings in a democracy. How to fix it? Well, we have had separate discussions on this quite often. How to build self-pride. Uh, Vibhuti Ji, would you like to have a go at a short one?
Yeah, sure. It says that, lack of self pride is something that we Indians suffer from generally. We have a problem with self pride, and we are not a very proud group of people. We suffer from a bit of an ahankar that I know everything, but in terms of real delivery, we miss out on, and there is a whole lot to fix it. And my fixing problem begins with one thing, and that is start the performance based culture instead of arakshan based culture. That's important.
Okay, next, Chaitanya. Uh, AIM, sir. Hmm, that's a very nice way of addressing an Iyer. I think it's insulting. How can we have an institutional democracy to make sure a new guy does not come and change all policies of previous governments? This is about constitutional amendments, I think.
You can't. You can't. Because that is the flexibility given to every government. And it's a flexibility that should remain. Of course, the only governments that change everything the previous government has done is Congress governments because they know how to use government. When the BJP or Third Front comes into power, they don't know jack shit because they don't know jack shit.
Okay, it's a very sweeping statement. Harish Pokhriyal, Patram Pushpam, thank you. Thank you, Harish ji. Rashin Jalaji, nice discussion. Thank you so much. Jaipur Alok, okay. Kanishka, what is the best course of action for finance students? Develop a bunch of the right financial institutions to improve the manufacturing and industrialization. Eliminate the role of bureaucracy at the local level, gundas in the industry. It's a tough one. Vibhuti ji.
Finance students to develop a bunch of right financial institutions. That's an absolutely good ambition. And that what you say is that if you do set up financial institutions, inculcate the concepts of efficiency and effectiveness, you will obviously get rid of the local gundas in the industry. That's absolutely true. I would put it that way. We need stronger institutional building. We need our own institutional building. We are aping and copying the West, and that I'm totally against.
Okay, next. So we take the last question. Okay. So Abhijit is feeling sleepy. He's had a Gujarati food plus upset stomach. So we are letting Abhijit go. If you have any questions, if you have one question, Abhijit can take and then go. So you shoot a question which is directed to Abhijit. Quick. Will bringing the bureaucracy under a robust tort law system where end users can sue bureaucrats for their commissions, omissions, can this improve accountability? This will give them a nice
No,
excuse not to do anything.
Exactly. No.
Ask me, I'll tell you this. Anyway, Abhijit, you are excused.
Thank you,
There are
sir.
more
Thank you,
important
everyone. I'm
assignments to
sorry
look
with all
after.
the. Yes. Thank you.
You take care. Take care.
Please look after your assignment. Yeah. Okay. Next. Vibhuti Ji, AM sir has gone for more important assignments. I am planning to go to Canada for masters. Should I go ahead or leave it altogether? How do I survive there? There what? Racism? Okay. We guess
Nishant,
whatever.
I would say wish you well for your selection and opportunity to study. The question is, again, I always ask is, what are you studying and what are you going for? That's something which I can't answer from here. But you need not fear. That's one thing which I say. I have lived in Naxal environment in India, and I survived. So there are social disturbances. If your concern is about social disturbance at the time, one has to deal with it. You have to live with it if you want to go there. So, running away from a reality is not good on yourself. Face it. And if that's what you wanted to do, you must go.
May I know Iyer versus anger exists? Iyer myself, all hype due to pressure tactics from Dravidian politics, obviously sometimes talks nonsense. Has more Bengali than Iyer. So he is no longer here, so we forward this question to him. Okay. Subu, so things have not changed even after 14 years. Same experience with my elder brother's business loan. I took loan in US, financed him. No change, UPA versus NDA. I think that's sad. The sad reality.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you all very much, and thank you to Abhijit who just left, and thank you to Vibhuti Ji.
Namaste.
Jai
Thank
Hind.
you.
Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.
Jai Hind. Vande Mataram. Take care.